Well, here we are. Time flies, and we are at the end of the semester once again. This is the last class for Composition 2, and today, rather than talking about new content, I'm simply going to point out some of the things that are going to be needed for proper preparation for the exam. We had a Zoom lecture last week that I think was productive. Please pardon my scratchy voice. I'm starting to lose it from talking too much. But we had a pretty productive Zoom lecture with both classes last week. We figured out that we're going to write on December 10th, and that information is on the website, whether you're writing at 12 or 2. Tuesday class will be writing at 2. All that information is on the website. I have in my hand here the final exam, which I will keep a secret until next week. But I would like to talk to you about how to prepare for the exam first. So as I mentioned, the way that we approached this class was by reading and analyzing and trying to understand each article that was written in the textbook. Each article was preceded and followed by a series of questions. The easiest questions were grammar and vocabulary, and I won't put those on the exam because I think you've moved beyond that by now. Instead, there'll be basically a few questions about the structure of the paragraph, because that was something that we worked on in addition to the book, but in certain places they do talk about it. Does the paragraph have a topic sentence? Does it have a concluding sentence? And are the supporting sentences related to both of those beginning and ending sentences? So that's the structure of a paragraph. That is what you're going to write in part C, and that is what you're going to analyze in part B. So, part A. There's a part A and a part B. I misspoke there. Part B is the written paragraph, and part A is the section where you analyze the paragraph. So you're going to read a cite passage, which is a medium to long size paragraph, and you're going to read it over and then do the questions that follow it, just as you did in your homework. Now, the only difference, I think, from what you do in your homework is that the order of the questions is a little bit different. So first, I'm going to ask you about the structure, whether the topic sentence is a good one, which means, is it specific? Does it give a reason? Can you tell them? Is there a main idea? Do you know what the person is going to talk about? Are those things in the topic sentence? So is there one? Oh, and is it a good topic sentence? I want you to tell me that. Is there a concluding sentence as well? So the supporting sentences, are they effective? Are they connected? Can one of them be removed? Or are there some missing information? These are judgment calls that you have to make when you're analyzing a paragraph. And we've been doing this the whole semester. In the case that you've been, the 3 response papers you wrote, the homework that we did, and the video lectures that you listened to. So you should be well acquainted with this kind of thing. So the first part of the questions for each of the 2 passages is analyze the structure. See how well organized it is. And I'll warn you right now that they're not perfect. I wrote them, and I intentionally made some mistakes. So don't get hung up on, trying to find all the mistakes or exactly what you think I did wrong. But look for the basic things that are required, the things I just listed. And if something's missing, or something needs to be added, or something doesn't make sense, that's what I want you to be able to point out. And that's what you write down. Well, this sentence needs to be taken out, or this sentence is very general, or the topic sentence isn't related to the rest of the paragraph. Whatever the case may be, you should be able to make that judgment. And so that's the first type of question that follows the passage. After that, you do the comprehension questions, just like in the textbook. there's information in the passage. I ask you about the information, you find it in the passage, and you give me that information. Then that demonstrates you understand the facts and the information that's presented in the writing. It's fairly straightforward. Maybe that's the easiest type of question. And then after that, there's going to be a discussion question, right? That relates to the main idea of the paragraph, right? So the discussion is supposed to sort of take the ideas and ask questions about how those ideas fit together or don't fit together, right? So for example, let's just take in the article, in the passage about lightning, it doesn't give you the answer, it just tells you men get hit by lightning more often than women. And when we talked about this in class, I don't know the reason actually. There could be multiple reasons, and we discussed one of the possibilities. Somebody said, well, men are slightly taller, okay? That's a small difference, so maybe that's not it. Men tend to be outdoors more. Well, that could be true, I suppose. We have to look at different types of employment and different activities, and if that turns out that men spend more time outdoors and they're more likely to be caught in a lightning storm, that's plausible, right? It's also possible that men's behavior has something to do with it. Not that all men do this, but that, in general, men are less cautious about a lightning storm coming, and they're like, it won't hit me, but a woman is more likely to take cover in a safe place, whereas the man is less concerned. Any of those things could be factors, but that's not information that's given to you in the passage. So that's why it's a discussion type question, because there's possibilities. The answer is not in the text. Right, and then of course maybe the toughest one of the different types I'm writing for you, different types of questions I'm giving you, is the last one, the critical thinking one. So you have to take something like that idea and put it into a different context, right? Apply it or evaluate it, judge it. That sort of thing. That's what critical. Look, what does it really mean? Go beyond what the simple statements are, and then draw your own conclusions from it. So in the same page, sometimes it involves judgments. Sometimes it involves decision making, or applying things to different situations, questioning whether something's applicable in all situations or where it wouldn't work. So here it says, what is the worst weather that your country has? What must people do to protect themselves during this kind of weather? Should people not live in certain places because of the weather? Why or why not? Well, people live in Florida, and Florida has hurricanes all the time. Why do they do that? Well, because usually Florida has beautiful weather, and now and again, you have to worry about losing everything or being killed by an enormous storm. That's the trade-off, right? So you have to, look at the situation and make a decision. Is it worth it? Is it worth it to have beautiful weather most of the time, but then every hurricane season run the risk of having your entire property wiped off the map? Or if you live in Kansas, in Tornado Alley, where there's several hundred tornadoes every year, but to build a house and to own land is super cheap. And I mean, you build a bunker underneath it, and if your house blows away, it blows away and you rebuild it, but you can afford a house because you live there. That you have to take a perspective, and then you have to connect things together and make decisions based on how you look at the idea. This is what critical thinking is. Don't take anything at face value. If somebody says tornadoes are bad, you're going to agree. But if, I don't know, there's people who live in Kansas, and obviously they put up with it. Do they put up with it because they like tornadoes? Probably not. Maybe some of them are really tough people and don't care, but more likely the side effect of having tornadoes is a benefit to them, which is that they can afford land, and as long as they have sort of somewhere to hide and be safe, they can have a huge farm and they can support themselves, despite the fact that they have dangerous weather. There's dangerous weather all over the place. People who live in India and Egypt, you could ask the same thing. You know, why did the ancient Egyptians live beside the Nile, where every year it flooded and washed away everything, and people died and animals lost, and they could never control when it happened or how big it was? Well, the reason is because although some people would die and they would lose a lot of what they worked on, that would result in the fertility of the soil. And once the flood waters calm down, they would be able to produce more food than any other country in the ancient world. So these are things that you have to take the ideas and you have to apply them, you have to connect them, you have to question them, and that's how critical thinking questions work. So they'll ask you to make an argument. Often a critical thinking question will ask you to take a position on something and make a judgment and defend why. So I don't want you to write one sentence for that. As you know, a short paragraph, 3, 4, 5, 6 sentences, so that I can clearly see your thought process, is what I want for that type of question. Okay, so there's 2 of those cite passages: structure questions, followed by comprehension questions, followed by discussion, followed by critical thinking, and that's the first part of part A, and then there's a second one, and then it's done. So part B is worth 65, it looks like. I have to balance the points a little bit, just in order to... One of the paragraphs is shortly... It's a little bit shorter, not shite. It's not a nice thing to say. It could be a shite paragraph, because I intentionally made mistakes. Like I said, you have to look for the mistakes in the first few questions. But one of the paragraphs is a little bit longer, so it's 35 for one paragraph and 30 for the second one, and that's 65 points. And then after that, the exam simply is you have to write a paragraph, okay? Now what I want, those of you who have improved this semester or understood from the very beginning, it's not an essay, but it's basically an argumentative paragraph, right? So you do have to look at the title, have to look at the topic. I'm not concerned about a title for this. You have to look at the topic, and then you have to narrow it down to something specific, like we have done, right? Like if I say the origin of a food, then you have to choose a specific food, and then you have to choose why you're going to talk about it, right? Not just because coffee's interesting. You have to talk about it because coffee is a multi-billion-dollar industry, where many companies make a lot of money, and the farmers and laborers are underpaid, and this is an unequal economic system where huge companies are profiting a lot, and the living conditions of the people on the coffee plantations are horrible. And that's why I want to talk to you about the development of the spread of coffee around the world and where it comes from, and what the problem is with coffee production today. That's better than just saying, I like drinking coffee, everybody in Korea drinks it, we have lots of cafes. Where did it come from? It came from Ethiopia, they accidentally dropped it in a fire. That's a story. I'm looking for something that has a point to it. You have to persuade me, you have to support your position. You only do one paragraph, don't do an introduction, just make a strong statement and then support that statement with your explanation, example, and details, right? just as you did in your response papers. That's what I want you to do. So there's 4 topics. Just choose one, make a strong specific statement about it, and then write a paragraph and write a conclusion that relates back to your first statement. And that's essentially the same, overall structure of an essay. It's just a single paragraph instead. So when you do composition 3, you'll be ready to break them up into different paragraphs and make it more complex. But since you have a limited amount of time and we've been doing paragraphs, that's all you need to do. 1 paragraph, strong topic statement that's specific, and a good concluding statement that indicates that you're finished and you reinforcing your original point. So, what I said in the Zoom lecture, one thing, like I said to you, we didn't do a lot of timed writing, and timed writing is a different thing than writing an essay or doing a homework assignment, because you can't write a bit and then leave the room and get a snack and come back, or take a break, or take 5 hours to do it. You really just have this 30-40 minute amount of time to organize your ideas and get all the words down on the paper, and that's it. Everybody, it's hard for everyone. Everyone's in the same situation. Nobody gets extra time. But out of all the things that you could practice, I think, for your exam, at the end of every chapter that we did, there is a timed writing exercise, and we would have done this several times in class, but it wasn't easy to do it online, and maybe I will attempt to do it next semester, but I certainly didn't want to sit on Zoom, with everybody writing and me just sitting there. It seemed like a waste of time, but this is really important to help you prepare yourself for the exam. So I would strongly suggest you go over your homework. You don't need to memorize the topics because the topics are new, but you do need to practice as if you were practicing math. Practice the types of questions that you will see on the exam. Just like when you're doing TOEIC. You don't know what the questions are going to be on TOEIC, but you practice the same types of questions. They're always the same type, right? They give you a description of a business, and then you have to tell what the information is in the business, and then they ask you a grammar question and blah, blah, blah. It's always the same, but the content changes. So it's the same thing. The content will be different. The format will be the same. If you do a timed writing exercise, it says 50 minutes here, but you're not going to have, you have an hour and a half to do the exam. Usually students leave themselves 40 or 30 minutes. You should definitely be finished part A by the 1 hour mark, but I would strongly suggest you do your timed writing. This one here is what? Write a paragraph about a friend or family. I'll pick a different one. Next chapter. Write a paragraph about a problem in nature that you have not already written about. First, answer the following questions with complete sentences, then rewrite them into a paragraph. You have 50 minutes. Okay. You can't search the internet. You just have to say, answer that question, right? Talk about a problem in nature. Okay? Problem in nature. What am I going to do? Pick one. Problem in nature, let's say tidal wave. Okay? Earthquake, tidal wave. That's going to be my topic. I'm going to narrow it down. I'm going to talk about Japan. I'm going to talk about Fukushima because the result of that tidal wave was a nuclear meltdown. Okay? Then that's going to be my main argument that we have to be better prepared for natural disasters, especially the types of natural disasters that happen suddenly near the seaside. Okay, if that's going to be it. And then my example is going to be Fukushima. So then you write all these things about the dangers and the cautions and what should have happened and what happened. And then your conclusion is, this is why Nuclear power plants should have higher safety regulations, and they should not be placed right next to the ocean, especially in a country which is known for earthquakes, okay? You go through that. I did that super quick, but basically you have to go through that whole process, maybe make some notes, line up your ideas, and then write. I know the quality of the paragraphs is not going to be as high as what you do at home when you have time to edit and everything. I'm well aware of that, and everybody else has the same trouble, but try and be organized and make sure you have the important parts, and you connect your ideas together, and then you'll get a good score on that part too. So that's how you should approach it. So if you're looking to do something to help you for part B, I recommend choosing one of the timed writing exercises from chapter 1 to 5, and just doing it and see how long it takes you, and see what problems you have, and maybe that'll enable you to improve and get better, and be less nervous when you do it in the classroom next Thursday. As I told you, the reviews, I usually speak very quickly. Luckily, there are auto-generated subtitles with YouTube now, so if you don't catch everything I say because I'm speaking fast to fit everything in, please turn on the subtitles at the bottom. Usually they're fairly accurate. And please, if you're the Thursday class, hand in your response paper. Tuesday class, I've already got them. It'll take a while to grade them, so be patient. I'm going to be grading 160 assignments and 160 exams in the next 2 weeks, so it'll be a long process. So please be patient about that, and see you finally in person next Thursday. Everyone, please be careful. This coronavirus is everywhere, including Daejeon, so please be safe and try to stay away from people as much as possible. You don't want to be sick before your exam or any time. Thank you for listening, and that's a wrap for this semester. Have a good day.